Bienvenue sur mon YouTube Siré Adjara. Siré, c'est mon deuxième prénom, c'est mon pseudo. Et Adjara, c'est en arabe quelqu'un de très solide, quelqu'un, une personne très déterminée, une personne sûre d'elle, une personne qui a confiance en elle, quoi. Un peu comme un bloc de pierre, quoi, qui est indestructible. Bienvenue sur ma chaîne. Voilà, je refais un live, comme hier, je refais un live aujourd'hui le soir. Nous allons continuer la saga de Candace, Owens, becoming Brigitte Macron. Elle a intitulé Walk Created Emmanuel Macron. Je vous invite à vous abonner, à liker, à partager. Dites-moi ce que vous en pensez en commentaire. Et si vous êtes chaud, je suis chaud. Là, j'ai agrandi un peu l'écran. J'ai mis le son à fond. Normalement, tout est bon. Donc, c'est parti. Let's go. C'est parti. Let's go. Allez.
The merrier. So welcome back. Hello, Alexander. Manala. Welcome back to our series Becoming Brigitte.
Et on fait comme d'habitude. Bon, là, son générique, on laisse et tout. On fait comme d'habitude quand il y a des pubs. Voilà, on poursuit. Sympa son générique, j'adore. Ça me fait rêver.
Honestly, I couldn't believe it. When I saw it, it was like a priority note on my Instagram. It's like Alexander Banala started following you. And I was like, whoa. Okay, obviously, whoa. What's the meaning of this? I'm not exactly sure what the purpose of the follow was, given the fact that my profile is public. So you don't have to follow me. You can just look at my profile privately. I take it that he wanted me to know that he was following me, but
je sais pas si elle parle de son profil Instagram, parce qu'elle dit qu'elle a un profil. Je sais qu'elle a un profil Instagram. J'ai pas suivi son Instagram. Moi, je suis très peu sur Instagram ces derniers temps, mais voilà, on sait jamais.
Squander away an opportunity, so I basically hit him up in his DMs. I slid into Alexander Banala's DMs. Here's what I said, okay? I said, I'm glad you're enjoying my series. Would you care to participate in it, to have your voice added?
Ah, elle a écrit à Benalla. Voilà, donc elle a fait un reportage. Je voulais savoir si vous vouliez participer. Je sais pas si elle a eu une réponse.
It says, seen 12 hours ago, Alexander Banala left me on red. So sad. Very sad. Anyways, I guess we'll just give him some time. Maybe he'll respond. Maybe he'll...
Je pense qu'elle a dit il a dû voir ou alors il a pas vu. Ben, on va voir ce qu'elle a dit.
The point
Bonsoir aux nouveaux
is
arrivants.
I want to make sure that I am representing people the correct way. We've asked Brigitte, we've asked Emmanuel. Nobody wants to give me any answers. So this episode is just
donc elle leur a demandé, elle a eu aucune réponse. Oui, 21, bienvenue.
Where we left off, we discussed Veronique, and that was extremely explosive, obviously, for a lot of people to learn that you had this individual who was obviously highly intellectual and talking about Chopin, speaking about poetry and Paul Verlaine, and speaking about how they needed this platform, talking about a show in 1977, to essentially advocate so that there were, well, transgendered rights. And I want to specifically speak about Veronique in terms of what was offered, something that we didn't hone in on last episode. There was a part of the correspondence which is going to become significant. So when the interviewer asked Veronique, do you live alone? Remember, Veronique responded and said, I'm not with anyone, but I've lived with a woman and conceived this union in the style of George Sand and Chopin. Chopin was probably...
Voilà, donc là, she said again, well, the dream that Mrs. Veronique at the talk show, the interview was in the 1977. Yes, I want to make this like a George Sand or Chopin. Voilà, the dream of Veronique. C'est chaud.
His style of melody, the way he plays, makes this quite clear. I think the image that has been given of the Rimbaud Verlaine union is a distorted, caricatured image that doesn't correspond at all.
Ah, je suis désolée, il y a la pub, hein. Déjà, c'est un pub. Ça va pas durer longtemps. Hein. Voilà. En plus, c'était le club où j'y étais l'année dernière. Allez hop.
So this trans individual who speaks exactly like Brigitte Macron, according to AI Tech, they say this is the same person, although the voice has aged over time. They have those same tics in speech, that is to say, that is to say. But we learn in that little correspondence that that trans individual, or identifying as a trans individual, said, or actually said, I've always viewed myself to be a woman, was using this name Veronique for the sake of the interview and confessed to living with a woman in the style of George Sand and Chopin.
D'accord, donc là, elle dit elle a vécu une relation comme celle de George, du style de George Sand et de Chopin. On va continuer.
You know, this person has a partner of some description, a friend, a partner. I don't know. I really don't know what that means. But then we learned that Jean-Michel Trogneau, in another strange coincidence, shortly after this interview took place, happened to marry a woman named, yeah, you guessed it, Veronique, of course. Veronique Drew, we are now introducing to you, and Jean-Michel had their marriage take place on November 24th, 1980, in Blangy-Tronville, a city named Blangy-Tronville, or a town named Blangy-Tronville. The union was only announced, by the way, after the fact, okay? So did not occur after the fact. The local newspaper, Le Courrier Picard, ran a little bit about it, and in that, since not...
Ah, là, c'est marqué en français. Donc, le carnet de courrier, Madame Jacques Dreux et Monsieur et Madame Jean Trogneux. Ouh là là, Madame Jacques Dreux et Monsieur et Madame Jean Trogneux sont heureux de vous faire part du mariage de leur enfant. Alors, Madame Jacques Dreux... C'est la sœur à Véronique Dreux ou quoi? Monsieur et Madame Jean Trogneux sont heureux de vous faire part du mariage de leurs enfants, Véronique Dreux et Jean-Michel. Ah, ok. Ah oui, c'est les parents de Jean-Michel. Yes, it is the parent of the Jean-Michel Trogneux and Veronique Dreux. Ok, d'accord.
Speak French. It specifies that the union between these two, between Monsieur and Madame Jean Trogneau,
Madame,
and Madame Jacques Drew,
Monsieur.
took place in the strictest privacy. Where have we heard that before? We've heard that before, haven't we? In the strictest privacy. I remember Taphone used that exact same language when she described the burial of her father, only we later learned that her father wasn't buried. He was cremated, but whatever, that's what Paris Match said. In the strictest privacy. So Jean-Michel Trogneau getting married. I don't know many people who get married and want to make sure it is in the strictest privacy. But that's what happened between these two individuals, Veronique and Jean-Michel Trogneau. And you'll never guess who was the witness to this wedding.
I don't understand some language. Welcome to my life. Thank you very much. Lashcom, yes, lash commentary, unsubscribe, and like my video.
So man, these siblings are really close, which makes it even stranger that down the line, this person who's claiming to have been Brigitte Trogneau, who is living in the Élysée Palace as the First Lady, just tried to cut her brother, Jean-Michel Trogneau, out of her life until journalists sniffed it out that there was somebody that was missing. But yes, it is recorded that Brigitte Trogneau was the witness, the only witness that signed to this strictly confidential wedding, okay? Then what happens next, it's recorded that Jean-Michel Trogneau and Veronique Drew had a child, Jean-Jacques Trogneau, that is the child.
Donc the both have got a child, Jean-Jacques. This seems, and Jean-Jacques, if you see the photos before in their episode on the Candace, you see that Jean-Jacques Tran look like Emmanuel Macron.
That we showed you that looks almost identical.
Yes, like Emmanuel Macron.
Really
it is cruising. It is his bro. I don't know. So it is his bro.
To convince me that these two people are not related, but they're not, guys. Not according to the official legend. They're definitely not married. That's Brigitte's side of the family. And then 2 years later, Jean-Michel Trogneau and Veronique Drew have a daughter, Valerie. Then very shortly thereafter, they get divorced. Their divorce is finalized in 1987. Now, Then things get super interesting. Post-divorce, Veronique Drew remarries years later, 1998, a man named Alan de la Simone. He is a major insurer from Amiens. Now, something worth noting is that after her marriage to Jean-Michel, Veronique classes up. Like, she now has money and she begins living the life, the high life that she never lived prior to, okay? Can happen. I guess you can class up in life, but it's just worth noting that she's living in a way that she hadn't lived before. So naturally, the journalist Xavier contacted her. That seemed like a good place to start. Like, if you're trying to determine whether or not Jean-Michel transitioned and became Brigitte Macron, you have to be willing to accept some evidence that would point to the fact that you are wrong, that your thesis is wrong. And thus far, everybody's coming up dry. It's just they don't want to give you any answers. We're getting these manufactured pictures, or pictures that can only come through Best Image, only come through Mimi Marchand.
Bonjour Zalida, bienvenue, bienvenue dans mon live. Là on décortique l'épisode 5 de Candace Owens. Là elle parle de Véronique Dreux et Jean-Michel Trognon qui ont eu 2 enfants, mais elle parle pas de Emmanuel. Et après, peu de temps après, Véronique Dreux divorce et elle refait des classes parce que voilà, elle a loupé un peu sa vie. On continue.
Accused of many of forgery, many of extortion, and she's in a lot of trouble right now. So anyways, Xavier Boussard decided to contact Veronique Drew. And guess what? She spoke with him. How strange. Somebody in the family, in the unit, speaking to a journalist. And she wanted to speak with him. You know, when he contacted her on WhatsApp, she said, yeah, let's set up a time to speak in the future. And essentially what she did was she wanted to dismiss these rumors about her ex-husband of many, many moons ago, Jean-Michel Trogneau. And so I'm going to read this portion directly from Xavier Boussard's book, which is available on Amazon, called Becoming Brigitte. And I want you to remember, Xavier Boussard is meticulous. He has kept recordings of every single person that he spoke to along this 8-year investigation. So from his book, he writes this in first person. So I was looking to contact Veronique Drew. What was the materiality of her marriage to Jean-Michel Trogneau? Who was he? How and when had they parted? After marrying a
Attends, c'est Jean-Michel Trogneau, ok.
Veronique Drew continued her upward social mobility by marrying a La Simone, now listed in the Bottin Mondan. That is where I found her number. I contacted on WhatsApp. She agreed to get back to me the next day and did so. Our conversation lasted half an hour. Even though she repeats the wording often heard from the Trogneau entourage, example, those women are crazy, referring to Natasha Ray and Amandine Roy, she first pretends not to know what the call is about. About Jean-Michel becoming Brigitte, right? Listen, sir, I don't know. It's ridiculous anyway, because I have 2 children with Jean-Michel. I saw on YouTube that they made a family tree where they even put that I might be Macron's mother. Veronique Drew is, of course, referring to questions raised by internet users about the uncanny physical resemblance between Emmanuel Macron, the husband of Brigitte, and Jean-Jacques Trogneau, the son of Jean-Michel Trogneau. She goes on.
Donc c'est bien l'interview entre Xavier Boussard et Véronique Dreux. Hein. On continue.
Have been divorced from Jean-Michel Trogneau for many years. Listen, sir, I have remarried and my children are here. I don't want any problems, but I can tell you...
Elle commence à flipper. Écoutez, je me suis remariée, c'est une histoire très ancienne. Hein, je veux plus que vous me mêlez dedans. Mais c'était pas tes enfants à toi. Je peux leur dire, toi, que Jean-Michel n'est pas un peu... C'est ridicule.
Is not Brigitte. That's ridiculous. I had 2 chocolate stores in Beauvais. Well, I had 2 children. It didn't work out, so I went back to live with my mom, and that's all. But I can tell you that Jean-Michel is not Brigitte. Xavier says, I take her at her word, and I ask her for photos of her shared past with Jean-Michel Trogneau, promising that if they are conclusive,
Bonjour,
to close the case without even publishing those photos. Veronique Drew says to him, Brigitte told me not to get involved.
Donc Veronique Dreux s'est remariée, a refait des enfants, n'a pas marché, ça n'a pas marché, donc elle est retournée chez sa mère. Donc là, elle demande à Xavier Boussard les photos des enfants petits. Donc c'est ce qu'elle dit, donc on continue.
I don't want any trouble about my children or about, it's not relevant to the family anymore.
Voilà.
Okay. So a couple of things that I
C'est
want
quoi ce
you to
truc?
remember, just to point out right there about that little correspondence. She tells Xavier that that after the divorce between her and Jean-Michel Trogneau, she went to live with her mother, okay? She also stresses emphatically that Brigitte is not Jean-Michel Trogneau, but also that Brigitte told her not to get involved. That's quite strange. Just off the bat, that's strange because you have two children with her brother, and you mean to tell me that it wasn't just your ex-husband, Jean-Michel Trogneau, the person that you raised your children with, who said anything to you, but rather his sister, your former sister-in-law who told you not to get involved? Okay, that seems a little strange. I would expect her to say, Jean-Michel Trogneau told me not to get involved with this, and you guys are all crazy, go away. But, okay, let's park that aside. You went to live with your mom post-divorce, and for whatever reason, you're listening to what Brigitte Macron is telling you to do, rather than your should-be ex-husband, who you've not mentioned in this conversation, and who she does not mention in the capacity of her having a present relationship with, a current relationship with. Okay, so jumping back into Xavier's conversation, back into first person, he says this in his book. As I, Xavier, argue that she should hold Brigitte Macron to account because it's because of her silence that her own photo, as well as the photo of her children, John Jack in particular, are circulating on social networks.
D'accord, donc Xavier pour ça dit bien que Véronique, vous parlez parce que c'est à cause de votre silence que Brigitte Macron ou que les photos de ses enfants circulent sur les réseaux.
Off and inexplicably blurts out. And also, I know Macron's
Si vous avez des questions, vous pouvez les laisser en
I don't know him
commentaire.
very well, but he was a surgeon at the Amiens hospital, but I didn't know Emmanuel Macron. We lived in Toulon. I didn't even know him. I saw him at my daughter's wedding, the first time I had ever seen him. Then I can hear another person on the line. Veronique Drew stops, visibly embarrassed, as if she's gone too far. She pulls herself together and asks me, well, and what is your name? End of conversation. So we are to garner from this conversation that someone was in the room. Okay, she said, I will agree to speak with you. And then there was someone in the room when she was having this conversation with Xavier Poussard that stopped her when she gave a random but very interesting tidbit that she knew Emmanuel Macron's father, Jean-Michel Macron, but she did not know anything of Emmanuel Macron until he appeared at her daughter Valerie's wedding.
Donc Véronique Dreux disait qu'elle connaissait bien son mari, mais elle ne connaissait pas Emmanuel Macron jusqu'au mariage de sa fille. Très bizarre.
And needless to say, she never did provide Xavier Poussard with any photos of her ex-husband or their strictly private wedding, anything that could have immediately just dispelled these rumors, these missing years, so to speak, of his life and Brigitte Trogneau's life that would have just put everything to bed. They're never willing to do that, right? So afterwards, Xavier Poussard does what he does best. He's investigated what she had told him. Okay, was Veronique the George Sand to Brigitte Macron's Chopin? Were they perhaps living together? And did she maybe help Brigitte Macron, eventually create an alibi for her past? Or was she telling the truth? Was everybody crazy and Jean-Michel Trogneau was just her ex-husband and he's very well and alive, he just can't speak to anybody right now? Well, I can tell you that Xavier was able to determine that there was a very weird pattern of behavior for Veronique following her divorce from Jean-Michel Trogneau, namely that she refused to acknowledge her previous marriage to Jean-Michel Trogneau, even when it was required of her by law.
Elle ne reconnaît pas son précédent mariage. Je ne sais pas si elle a peur ou quoi. On va reculer, mais je pense que c'est ça. Elle ne reconnaît pas son mariage. C'est bizarre, ça. Pas reconnaître
She was having this conversation with Xavier Poussard that stopped her when she gave a random but very interesting tidbit that she knew Emmanuel Macron's father, Jean-Michel Macron, but she did not know anything of Emmanuel Macron.
Donc le père, mais pas Emmanuel Macron.
At her daughter Valerie's wedding.
Okay.
And needless to say, she never did provide Xavier Poussard with any photos of her ex-husband or their strictly private wedding, anything that could have immediately just dispelled these rumors, these missing years, so to speak, of his life and Brigitte Trogneau's life that would have just put everything to bed. They're never willing to do that, right? So afterwards, Xavier Poussard does what he does best. He's investigated what she had told him. Okay, was Veronique the George Sand to Brigitte Macron's Chopin?
Et il a
Were
craqué.
they perhaps living together? And did she maybe help Brigitte Macron, eventually create an alibi for her past? Or was she telling the truth? Was everybody crazy and Jean-Michel Trogneau was just her ex-husband and he's very well and alive, he just can't speak to anybody right now? Well, I can tell you that Xavier was able to determine that there was a very weird pattern of behavior for Veronique following her divorce from
Oui,
Jean-Michel
bien sûr, parce
Trogneau.
qu'elle a peur. Elle a peur, donc un journaliste qui vient lui demander sur sa vie de famille. She's crazy. She's not crazy. She's afraid. She's afraid if a journalist to come to call at WhatsApp. They talk at WhatsApp, and she asked her about her marriage with Jean-Michel Trogneau. And she want to give him some photos about their children. No photos, no information. She's afraid, and she want to keep her life privately.
Mainly that she refused to acknowledge her previous marriage to Jean-Michel Trogneau, even when it was required of her by laws. Okay, for example, in a tax document, here it is, that is dated in January.
Alors, cette acquisition a eu lieu moyennant le principal 18 000 francs. Payé comptant et quittance en acte. Une expédition de cet acte a été publiée au bureau des hypothèques d'Amiens. Ok, le 777 volume 59. C'est un acte. Alors, un acte, nana. Madame Niki Roland, venue veuve de monsieur Dreux, Jacques-Louis Victor. Demeurant à Léry, dans la Somme. Alors, c'est bizarre. Monsieur Dreux, Dominique, Victor, Jacques, époux. Nana et Madame Dreux, Véronique, Christine, Dominique, divorcée de Monsieur François Serge Georges Marcel. Ok.
Of 1992, she listed that she had only previously been married once to a man named Serge Francois. And by the way, that's true. She had first married Serge, and then she married Jean-Michel Trogneau. But of course, she had two marriages, and she leaves off Jean-Michel Trogneau. She says, I've only been married once. That is a lie. Who among us would lie on a tax document? That's a very scary territory, right? You don't want to be caught lying on tax documents, and yet she did this. She removed one of her marriages. Then she did it again in a public real estate collective that she put together to purchase her house in Corsica. I think it would be similar to putting your house in an LLC. In 2008, she reported that she had actually never previously been married in a document that was issued by a notary. Okay, she lied in the presence of a notary and again removed her marriage from Jean-Michel Trogneau, who was instructing her to essentially pretend that she had never been married to Jean-Michel Trogneau. And then she married
J'ai
Jean-Michel
loupé une
Trogneau.
information. Je pense que cela se fait la mettre votre maison dans une salle.
In 2008, she reported that she had actually never previously been married in a document that was issued by a notary. Okay? She lied in the presence of a notary and again removed her marriage from Jean-Michel Trogneau, who was instructing her to essentially pretend that she had never been married to Jean-Michel Trogneau on documents. She just removed him for the rest of her life, it seems. Everything that Xavier could find. He was also able to determine through documents that she had lied to him over the phone when she said that following the divorce, she went to live with her mother. He was able to find records that revealed to him that actually she went to live in an apartment in Amiens that was owned by Jean-Michel Trogneau's father. So the Trogneau family put her up in an apartment, and I don't know, I guess it's not totally strange that your father-in-law might do that, but what is strange is that you would lie about that years later when people start asking questions about your ex-husband, okay? Very strange. It's worth noting also that right around this time of their divorce, okay, so they're officially divorced in 1987. You can assume they separated sometime before that because to finally get your divorce stamped and done and sealed usually takes a little longer, maybe 1 year if you're going really quickly. But that's the time that Brigitte Macron, the Brigitte Macron that we know, okay, the public record Brigitte Macron, that's when she begins her very public and traceable career as a teacher. okay? She goes and enters in 1986 at the Lucy Berger School. Suddenly changes the career, total career change, and then this is all they want to show us. Oh, look, she was a teacher here, and a teacher here, and a teacher there. And of course, the future love of her life, Emmanuel, was just 9 years old. So it was just 5 more years. 5 more years. And then Brigitte Macron, the one that we know, will meet the love of his life. Oh, did I say his? The love of her life. This is a good time to tell you that most of what you think you even know about Emmanuel Macron thus far, his legacy, yeah, it's just objectively not true. Emmanuel had a major hand up in life. This guy is so private, we don't know much about him. What we do know about him is, I would say, quite sinister. It's quite sinister. It's making me think, I don't know, of that movie, The Manchurian Candidate. I'll tell you guys about that after a brief break from our sponsors.
Par contre, là, t'attends understand. What is the year? Where is the year? How year Brigitte Osier died? I don't know. I don't know what is the year that Brigitte Osier died. I don't know. Because she said after 1980, she become a teacher. I don't know.
Thank Preborn. They've been our sponsors from the beginning of this podcast. We know they're doing such great work. Planned Parenthood is spending millions to target vulnerable women who are being convinced that they should take the abortion pill because it's a quick and easy solution. But what Planned Parenthood doesn't tell these ladies is that there is a devastation that follows. There's pain, there's regret, there's the reality of having ended a life. That's why Preborn is stepping in through innovative technology. Preborn is reaching abortion-determined women before they take that pill, before it's too late. In fact, to date, Preborn's network of clinics has rescued over 300,000 babies and have seen over 90,000 women come to Christ, but it does not stop there. Preborn's network of clinics are with these moms every step of the way, offering them counseling, maternity supplies, and the support they need to choose life. But they cannot do it without us, which is why just $28 will help to provide an ultrasound to a woman that is in crisis. That is literally it, $28 to help her to see her baby and choose life instead. So if you'd like to donate, you just dial pound 250 and say the keyword baby. Again, that's pound 250 baby. Or you can donate securely at Preborn.
Alors ça c'est ses promos. Allez, on continue. Voilà, donc là, elle nous présente un truc.
Nope, that isn't true. None of that is true. And they created this idea of him really just because they wanted the public to believe that he was this genius and that he therefore deserved to be suddenly in the mist as a politician, that he had this background where he was kind of a boy genius. And like I said, that could not be further from the truth. The reality is Emmanuel Macron's real story is more of a fake it till you make it, okay? That's how you would say it, fake it till you make it. As we have stressed before, not much is known about his childhood, okay? It's weird, just gets very strange. His mother, we now know, was in charge of the gender reassignment program at the Social Security office. His father was a psychiatrist, but according to Veronique, she had no memory of Emmanuel having been around him. His grandmother, Manette, we know, definitely was involved in his childhood. It's the only one he speaks about affectionately or even relates to his childhood in his book. We also know that grandma had a knack for pedophile-centric books. It was grandma's thing. What are you gonna do? She likes these pedophile-centric books. She's just like, hey, is that a pederast? Yeah, that's a really cool thing. Let's talk about Andre Gide. Let's talk about it. Let's talk about all of these weird passages. Me and my grandchild's, we share this with one another. Like I said, we learned that he was a bit of a loner. He didn't have many friends. People that went to school with him didn't even know what his parents did. Well, according to the Wall Street Journal's book, The Calculated Rise of Macron, it was the Rothschild family, the Rothschild bank, that had everything to do with his professional resume. Okay. And interestingly enough, Xavier Poussard had discovered that the bank made an internal error in their documents when they listed Macron, who is supposed to be born in Amiens, as having instead been born in Paris. And they made this error.
Est-ce qu'ils ont fait une erreur? Ils ont falsifié le document. Au lieu de mettre Amiens, ils ont mis Paris. Sur plusieurs documents d'ailleurs, je vais vous en montrer quelques-uns.
By the way, I'm going to show you a few of them.
Okay.
And the reality is, of course, this keeps coming up, that we are told in the official biography that he's born in Amiens. Then we have the former mayor of Amiens who said, no, he's, what was it, Touquetois? Like from Le Touquet area. Now we have the Rothschilds reporting that he's born in Paris. And we just don't know what's real and what's false. Okay? We really don't know. But we do have this from...
Voilà, alors qu'est-ce qui est dit? Deuxième décision collective. L'Assemblée générale des associés, statuant en condition de majorité définie à l'article. Nommé monsieur Emmanuel Macron, nanana, qu'il accepte en qualité de gérant. Ok.
Rothschild Bank minutes here, it says he is born né le 21 December 1977 à Paris, and they do this again, and they just keep making this mistake that he's born in Paris. But it must have been a clerical error. Now, Emmanuel Macron never denied his closeness with the Rothschilds. In fact, he said this in 2012, and I quote, "I had a very unintelligible background. No one could understand me outside of Rothschild." Okay? And when he became the economic advisor to the socialist president Francois Hollande, he said that David de Rothschild, quote, knows about my commitment. What? What are you talking about? What are you saying? What are you saying, Emmanuel Macron? You're going to be his protector when you get into power? I'm going to read you this passage regarding him climbing the ladder at the Rothschild Bank, because apparently his rise made no sense to his colleagues. This is from Xavier's book, quote, "Within the bank, Emmanuel Macron's progress surprised many. Cyril Harfouche explained that he, quote, had been identified as a very singular personality with a lot of contacts. And Sophie Javari, who trained him at Rothschild & Co., reports that he, quote, had very high-level contacts for our files with links to the state," end quote. According to her, her most experienced colleagues were surprised by his, quote, supports at the top level of the bank, notably David de Rothschild and his right-hand man Francois Henrot, who occasionally allowed him to, quote, bypass his immediate hierarchy. This support enabled him to become, at the age of 32, the youngest managing partner in the bank's history, even though, according to other employees, he was a poor technician. Quote, Macron doesn't know
Donc il dit bien que c'est le plus jeune. Hein.
As a very
Mais probablement il y a beaucoup de
with a
surprises.
lot of contacts. And Sophie,
Ouais, parce que c'est un bosseur.
book, quote, within the bank, Emmanuel Macron's progress surprised many. Cyril Harfouche explained that he, quote, had been identified as a very singular personality with a lot of contacts. And Sophie Javari, who trained him at Rothschild & Co., reports that he, quote, had very high-level contacts for our files with links to the state. According to her, her most experienced colleagues were surprised by his, quote, supports at the top level of the bank, notably David de Rothschild and his right-hand man Francois Henrot, who occasionally allowed him to, quote, bypass his immediate hierarchy. This support enabled him to become, at the age of 32, the youngest managing partner in the bank's history, even though, according to other employees, he was a poor technician. Quote, Macron doesn't know much about it. Quote, in meetings we giggle and think ardently, here's another Macron gem.
C'est officiel. Vous pouvez
Alors la pub, elle nous saoule avec la pub. Hein.
On vous présente le jean ultime.
Voilà, allez, on continue.
Now, reporting on other confidences from Rothschild & Co. executives, journalist Mark Endeweld confirms the bitterness aroused by his accelerated promotion. Quote, at Rothschild,
I've got a fast promotion in at Rothschild. So why I've got he just entered the company, and after with Sophie someone, he have got a fast promotion. I don't know.
Of never having written an equation. He didn't even know what EBITDA is, the operating profit of a company. David de Rothschild had to, quote, violate them to appoint him to managing partner. Okay, the idea of a managing partner of Rothschild Bank, not confidences from Rothschild & Co. executives, journalist Mark Endeweld confirms the bitterness aroused by his accelerated promotion.
Oh là là.
Quote, at Rothschild, he has a reputation of never having written an equation.
I've got to accelerate
He
promotion.
didn't even know what EBITDA is, the operating profit of a company. David de Rothschild had to, quote, violate them to appoint him to managing partner.
Yes, he rapped Emmanuel Macron. David by Rothschild rapped Emmanuel Macron. Yes, he rapped him. Donc ça veut dire David de Rothschild a violé Emmanuel Macron, pour parler cru. Hein. Il lui a fait l'amour pour qu'il accède à un poste plus haut. Ah, c'est bâtard.
Okay, the idea of a managing partner of Rothschild Bank not knowing what EBITDA stands for, like that. I mean, I'm not a financial institution over here. Earnings before interest and tax. He didn't know what that was, and so people around Rothschild who watched his rise and were bitter about it and knew that David de Rothschild had a hand in this. Again, you can read about this in the Wall Street Journal's book. You can read about this in Mark Endeweld's book, The Ambiguous Past of Macron. People don't understand how he was just sort of elevated at this bank. And by the way, that elevation actually took place before he even got to the Rothschild's bank. It also took place in school. So we were told he was Mozart, right? We were told that this kid just had it. He just was so brilliant. They're going to find this other point to be quite odd. In 2002, when he was 25 years old, Emmanuel Macron was admitted into ENA. That's a school. It's basically the National School of Administration, a hyper-elite French graduate program. Is the best way for me to explain it to English listeners, okay? Yet, he failed entry into this school twice. And then, he was magically admitted without having to answer the question that was asked during the oral exam. That's a component of getting into this
en
school.
fait,
So
donc il a échoué
he
l'examen
failed entry
d'oral.
into this school twice.
Ouais.
And then, he was magically admitted without having to answer the question.
Donc il a échoué,
that was
il a échoué à l'examen, mais il a été admis sans avoir à répondre à la question qui était demandée lors de l'oral. Bizarre, les gars.
asked during the oral exam. That's a component of getting into this school, this elite school, which essentially you have to attend to get like a high-level job as a financial executive. They just allowed him to be admitted without doing the oral exam. Like that's ever been done before, okay? Then, somehow, he ends up in the top rankings of his class and is able to join the Inspector Generals of Finances. And his students around him, his colleagues around him, clearly knew that he was an idiot, and that meant that the rankings were cooked. So there was public backlash amongst the other students within his year. They literally mobilized against the fraudulent results, which then led to the Council of the State having to intervene and cancel the school rankings for that year for the first time in the school's history, okay? For the first time in the school's history. Could you imagine this? Like an MBA program, and you're like, this kid's an idiot. I don't even know how he got here. And other students within his year. They literally mobilized against the fraudulent results, which then led to the Council of the State having to intervene and cancel the school rankings for that year for the first time in the school's history, okay? For the first time in the school's history. Could you imagine this? Like an MBA program, and you're like, this kid's an idiot. I don't even know how he got here. And then they released the rankings, like, actually, he's the smartest kid in the class. And then they all went, okay, what is going on here? Clearly, this is cooked. This is completely cooked. And they get the council involved, the state council involved, and they go, you know what? How about just no results this year?
It's so unimaginable.
What? A quick little point on that, by the way. is that in 2021, when Emmanuel Macron was president, he decided to essentially cancel the EMA.
Sorry,
He's
yeah,
like,
I'm a
oh,
little
we actually
tired.
need more diversity in banking, so we shouldn't even have this program. This is ridiculous. This is crazy. We just need to have more diversity. Yeah, okay, buddy. I'm sure that's what it is. Sounds like maybe your entire career you were just being prepared for this moment of becoming the president of France, and you actually, what you are.
Mais he rapped already by David de Rothschild. Voilà. He rapped already. He had rapped already by David de Rothschild. Yes. À promotion canapé, comme on dit en français.
Verify, which is a drama student. You know how to act. You know how to act and pretend that you are the president, while there is clearly somebody behind you that has been moving you all through life. Another odd point was that when he was admitted into the Rothschild Bank in 2008, he was supposed to have publicized an order from the minister which granted him leave from compulsory civil service. For whatever reason, he was exempt from that compulsory procedure. So he didn't even have to reinstate his civil service when he then left the bank and was magically appointed, right, to President Holland's team as an economic advisor. Like, what? In fact, the deputy chairman of the Council for State Legal Ethics spoke out about this. He remarked that he had never seen anything like it. He had never seen someone given an exemption on this, not having to go by certain steps. I'm sure just like the students at the ENA had never seen someone who couldn't even get into the school, who clearly was not at the top of the class, magically be awarded and be told.
Les échelons, quoi. Putain.
So that's the brightest kid in the class, actually. Here we go. And they were outraged. And they should have been outraged. And the people that work with him at Rothschild Banks were similarly outraged. These guys didn't even know what EBITDA is. It sounds like actually he's an idiot. He's an idiot when it comes to finances. And
Même seems like the other people classroom about Rothschild, they're very in stupefaction.
He probably could not wax poetic about anything, and he is just performative. It makes me think of the story of that politician when he's talking about Pyrenean. Oh, my grandmother, is she, you know, all that my great-grandparents wanted was for her to learn French, you know, and because she only spoke Pyrenean, and he's like, that's not a language.
Oh, sorry.
That's why I say this reminds me of the Manchurian Candidate. Now, regarding the Rothschilds family, there is so much that I could say here, but I do not want this episode to get hit on YouTube. Suffice it to say, you could look up any of them. The proven ties to Jeffrey Epstein, the various pedophilic and incest scandals which are abound and have surrounded this family. You could look up anything, but know that any journalist who begins to write about this in France has to face anti-Semitism charges, right? You can't, oh gosh, God forbid you actually report on facts pertaining to the Rothschilds family and their empire. What we'll do instead here is leave you with what Xavier Poussard said, because I think he summed it up quite brilliantly regarding the Rothschilds. He wrote, notoriously the Rothschilds' longevity and preservation of their fortune are based on an extensive practice of endogamy and alliances between cousins, essentially interbreeding. At a conference at the Museum of Art History, Natalie Reams, David de Rothschild's cousin, went further, declaring, quote, a very common practice in such families. Vice is nice, but incest is best because it stays in the family.
Alors, sont simplement élevés pour être silencieux. Pour que rien ne sorte, nous sommes élevés avec ce poids. Ouh là là.
Raised to be silent, so that nothing comes out. We are brought up with this weight to make sure, and it works, that we never speak out. Xavier concludes by saying words that echo what we encountered throughout our investigation of Brigitte, a family cloistered in silence, jealous to protect a family secret, zealous to protect a family secret that has become a state affair. And I am telling you on that closing chapter regarding the Rothschilds and regarding the Rothschilds. He wrote, notoriously, the Rothschilds' longevity and preservation of their fortune are based on an
Ah oui, oui, oui,
extensive
oui.
practice
Ok,
of
understand.
endogamy and
Secret, the
alliances
secret
between
family,
cousins,
the
essentially,
education.
interbreeding. At a conference at the Museum of Art History, Natalie Reams, David de Rothschild's cousin, went further, declaring, quote, a very common practice in such families. Vice is nice, but incest is best because it stays in...
Vice is nice, but incest is préférable. Donc le vice c'est bien, mais l'inceste est préférable. Et ils restent dans la famille et sont élevés à se taire, ne rien dire. C'est chaud, hein?
Family. We are simply raised to be silent, so that nothing comes out. We are brought up with this weight to make sure, and it works, that we never speak out. Xavier concludes by saying words that echo what we encountered throughout our investigation of Brigitte, a family cloistered in silence, jealous to protect a family secret, zealous to protect a family secret that has become a state affair. And I am telling you, on that closing chapter regarding the Rothschilds and the scandals abound, including scandals that pertain to David de Rothschild, you will want to pick up Xavier Poussard's book, Becoming Brigitte, because what I have given you thus far is truly the tip of the iceberg. I cannot explain to you how many pedophile scandals I have removed from this podcasting, again, because this is on YouTube, so I have to make this as rated G as I possibly can. It cannot continually be the case that these are all just coincidences, okay? There's just way too many coincidences adding up. You can't play the all my homies are pedophiles and trans except for me card. I don't know. I just would feel a little bit weird about that, right? If you just had an individual in your life and you're like, I swear everyone around me is involved in this, but it's not me, right? That's kind of what Emmanuel Macron is trying to sell to us right now. Everyone's involved in all this stuff, but not me. I now look at him having come out of that book and I think he's an idiot. He's just a puppet. And he has been groomed from the time that he was a child. But groomed by who? Who is his father? Who is his father? If people...
Who is this father?
If he doesn't have this relationship with Jean-Michel, we found out all throughout this affair that he doesn't really seem to have close relations with his parents. Or his doctors, perhaps? I don't know. You can ask pointed questions to them, but they don't want to answer any of these questions.
Le pauvre Macron, il a été élevé dans cette famille d'Omerta. Enfin, on l'a pris quand on l'a complètement violé de A à Z pour avoir une promotion chez Rothschild. Et puis, il se retrouve dans une famille où tout est Omerta, quoi. Ils se font violer pour se taire, quoi. C'est ça, hein. Il n'y a pas d'autre mot. Et c'est de là que vient la pédophilie, hein. Évidemment, ça se transmet.
And the game is that you have to be very precise in how you ask them questions, because they can change identities and they can change names. The family has this capacity. So if you are wondering the answer to why it is that Xavier Poussard has never been sued by the Macron family, what is it exactly that saved Xavier Poussard, whereas the women, Natasha Ray and Amandine Roy, who did wonderful work, ended up getting sued for little mistakes? The answer is actually kind of funny because it kind of boils down to the differences between men and women. So I would say that women, first and foremost, tend to be more intuitive. We are more intuitive. We go with our guts. I say this all the time to my husband. This person just gives me a bad vibe. I don't trust this person. I tend to go with my gut a lot more. I do believe that we have God's intuition, especially when it comes to our children. But men tend to be a bit more technical, right? Where they will just need to mathematically compute something.
Donc là, elle parle de différence entre l'instinct de homme et femme, hein, qu'elle a avec son mari, parce qu'elle dit que son mari me met l'ambiance, et moi je vais plus à l'instinct, surtout quand il s'agit de nos enfants. Et les hommes sont plus calculateurs, plus mathématiques. C'est ce qu'elle dit.
Something, and they'll question things and maybe not go with their gut all the time or go with their gut at all. And so that is really what happened with Natasha Ray and Xavier Poussard. So Xavier Poussard used a technology. I mentioned it to you on last week's episode, or a couple of days ago on the episode, but I want to demonstrate that technology for you, because when he said it to me, my girl brain just sort of went, okay, I'm not into AI, I'm not into tech. But then when he explained to me that this technology known as Face++ is basically the World Economic Forum's has listed it amongst its 11 smartest companies. Okay, it is headquartered in Beijing, China. As I mentioned to you, it is what China uses as their software for facial recognition. And when he showed me how accurate it is, I was positively shocked. I genuinely shocked, amazed, and then terrified about the direction of the world when you think about these globalists who I believe want to turn us into like sort of these technological slaves, and recognizing that this artificial intelligence is bang on accurate. And so yes, it's valued at $1 billion from the WF website. It tells us that it was founded in 2011, and it is a leader in machinery, visual, artificial intelligence industry and face recognition systems. So I want to show you, like, just as he was showing me this technology, and I was kind of testing it to see if
Bon,
it
ça
could
c'est
get
pas
something wrong, just
important.
how accurate
Voilà.
it could be. Because
Voilà, on y arrive.
it comes back with a percentage.
Donc là, voilà. Donc, ah, 70, 75. Voir ce qu'elle va dire. Ah, la technologie. Selena, voilà. Non, Selena. Ségolène Royal. Pourquoi ils mettent des femmes politiques? Ah, quand elles sont jeunes et quand elles sont vieilles. Ah, quand elles sont jeunes et quand elles sont vieilles. Ok.
Telling you, essentially, you get into the 75% range, you get above 70%, and it is very high. Like, yes, we are certain that that is her, and it is her. It is accurately her. I'm also going to show you that it is able even to take a childhood photo, and even though that might make it
Ah, la vraie
lower,
photo,
or
la
decrease.
technologie peut vous reconnaître plus jeune que quand vous avez pris l'âge. Je pense que c'est ça qu'elle parle.
And you may not get into the 70 range, you may get into the high 60 range. It is still able to tell you that, yes, this is the correct person. So you're seeing here
Okay.
Shirley Temple on the bottom there, Hillary Clinton. I mean, her face really hasn't changed much from the time that she was a child, but 78% confidence. On the top there, of course, you got Princess Diana.
Ouais, Princess Diana. Donc les photos des femmes jeunes, on les reconnaît plus jeunes, elles sont vraies, que quand elles prennent l'âge. Elles ont tous été mignonnes, hein? Height. Princess Diana. Baby height. C'est pas mal, hein?
You've got the Queen. It's able to come back and to say to you, despite all of this time and age, that this is the same person, which is incredible, like I said. Then here, this is the reason, by the way, which to me, I would have been, if I had to place a bet on a horse, I would have bet on Natasha Ray and her instincts. When she first saw that photo of Andre Louis at his wedding, and then she found out that he had a cousin who was named John Louis, okay? So just looking at this photo, on the left there is the wedding photo, obviously the groom. On the right there is his cousin. That's John Louis. So these are, I would have thought the same person. So she looked at this photo and she's like, no, I actually think that the person in the photo is this guy. And I think that they're playing us. And that, if I had just looked at these photos and trusted my own eyes, I would have totally co-signed to what Natasha Ray said. That looks to be the exact same person. But Xavier Poussard, so Natasha said that or wrote that, and she got sued for defamation. Xavier Poussard instead ran these two photos in his technology, and it told him no. It said it's not the same person. In Face++, it came back 52% low. So he said, okay, I must be missing something. I'm going to rely on technology. It's telling me that these are two different people. They look so much, these first cousins look a lot alike, but the technology person. So she looked at this photo and she's like, no, I actually think that the person in the photo is this guy. And I think that they're playing us. And that, if I had just looked at these photos and trusted my own eyes, I would have totally co-signed to what Natasha Ray said. That looks to be the exact same person. But Xavier Poussard, so Natasha said that or wrote that, and she got sued for defamation. Xavier Poussard instead ran these two photos in his technology, and it told him no. It said it's not the same person. In Face++,
Ah oui, d'accord.
it came back 52% low.
Et pourtant, si, parce qu'il a
So
vieilli.
he said, okay, I must be missing something. I'm going to rely on technology. It's telling me that these are two different people. They look so much, these first cousins look a lot alike, but the technology picked it up. And of course, we then learned, as we covered yesterday, or 2 days ago rather, that it actually was a different person. That John Louis Ozier was a first cousin. He was not, in fact, the same person that was pictured there, which is the reason that she got sued for defamation. Again, not attacking the substance of her claims, not attacking whether or not Brigitte had transitioned from Jean-Michel Trogneau, rather attacking an error that is going to happen as you're investigating the story and when people are refusing to give you any answers, and in many times intentionally sending you down the wrong path, right? So regarding Brigitte Macron, who has now changed her face as we learned, we know that she's seeing this doctor, she's getting feminization surgery. This is a good way. And plus, she's now in her 80s, right? And we've got only pictures from her childhood, only pictures of Jean-Michel Trogneau from his childhood. When you compare this with the tech returns this way. It tells us that this is a
Voilà,
high
donc maintenant,
probability. This is
Madame Trogneux, Mademoiselle Brigitte Macron. Hein.
dentured teeth, different teeth, right? It is telling us that this is this boy in this school photo, okay? This is this boy in this school photo. It is returning from normal to highest being there at 17.3%, and that's just with the school photo.
Donc là, en
And with
normal, Jean-Michel Trogneux et Brigitte Ozière. Donc, ils sont pas ressemblants. Voilà, donc là, c'est Brigitte Macron. Oui, il y a plus de ressemblances, évidemment. Il y a plus de ressemblances. Et même en bas, voilà, pas beaucoup. Et là, beaucoup. Putain.
years of work. Okay, we're not even comparing this to the
Non,
school
Brigitte
photos where she
Ozière,
still had
Brigitte
the
Macron.
teeth that you see there on the left-hand side, right? When Brigitte still had teeth. This is with a ton of work being done by the magician to the transgendered community, right? A guy that can make you a woman. It looks at you, looks at women like they're clay. And it is still certain that that is Brigitte Macron, okay? That little boy became Brigitte Macron. It is also certain that the woman in the wedding photo, so more aged on, Brigitte Trogneau, who married Andre Louis, is not the First Lady Brigitte Macron that we see today. It is returning low probability that these are the same people. What's going on here? What do you mean it's returning low probability? This maybe
Voilà,
gives us...
là, au 48%. Donc, ça doit être Brigitte Ozière plus jeune, je pense. So young, Brigitte Ozière so young, and Brigitte Ozière so old. So young, so old. Yes, so young, so old. Brigitte Macron now. Low, 53. I don't understand this file because I maybe that you say the probability to seems like where she was young and where she was old. When she is old now.
Answer to why she will not answer. She will not join a lawsuit and assert formally by just saying that is me in the photo, okay? She will not answer my questions as we've had our legal team go out and we have said, we don't want to lie. Just say, Xavier, we're not here in the business to spread lies, okay? Doesn't help me. Doesn't make my audience want to come back to my show when I get busted intentionally lying and defaming someone for the sheer sport of it. Help me help you, Brigitte. Is this you in the wedding photo? She doesn't want to answer that question, okay? Well, if we turn to AI technology, the reason why she's not answering that question is because it's not her in the photo, okay? That is somebody else. And that somebody else went by the name Brigitte Trogneau. So it's very interesting. Jean-Michel Trogneau at that wedding. We're not allowed to see any photos of him at that wedding because apparently all photos have been destroyed other than 2 lingering photos of the of Andre Louis, and same for Brigitte Trogneau. We are just finding that despite all photos that should be made available, we can't even get our hands on school photos.
Four more 10 minutes.
They don't want to give them. They don't want to give them up. Nothing exists. It's just all been deleted. A whole person just got deleted. Okay. And regarding the communion photo, which we instantly looked at and said it looks nothing like the First Lady, I'm looking at my eyes, it returns this answer. The text says, no. Again, low. Nope. Not happening. Sorry. Ain't her. Okay. So what do we discern from that? What we discern from that is that the photos that Mimi Marchand, Best Image Agency, Mimi Marchand, who's
Les
up with the
gangsters.
gangsters doing work, making sure that pedophile scandals don't hit the press, disgusting pedophile scandals. She's stopping that from hitting the press. She's the popess of the celebrity media, doesn't print without her say-so. The person that documentary filmmakers have to go through to get any images of the First Lady, and then when they get these images, there are few and far between, but 3 entered into the public arena of her childhood, and all of those photos, 1 or 2 from her childhood rather, and 1 from her marriage, alleged marriage. Well, Chinese tech software sanctioned by the WEF as the best in the game is telling us that that is not the current First Lady of France. What are we to make of that? What are we to make of that? The silence, the punking, the intimidation techniques, going after people for taxes, sending the figurative or the French IRS to go after people when they can't get them on defamation, going after trying to figure out who's funding people. Us having had, as we did in the past, our interview with Xavier taken down from YouTube for weird reasons, demanding censorship, accusing Xavier Poussard of anti-Semitism for an article that he wrote had nothing to do,
antisémitisme parce qu'il touche à la famille Rothschild, autrement dit la famille Macron, quoi. Macron, teigneux, donc voilà, c'est un antisémite, quoi. Parce qu'il a touché à une affaire très très importante, une famille riche. Attention, il suffit de passer Dieudonné, voilà, ce serait la même. Hein.
Brigitte Macron, but he said the article he wrote
Appelons Dieudonné, hein. Call Dieudonné.
The power who controls all the media in France, they're coming after him for anti-Semitism. He didn't even say these people are Jewish. He just wrote the names of the people who have power in the media in France. They're looking for anything.
À ne pas confondre avec les Juifs de la Shoah. Juste parce qu'il fait une enquête sur eux, voilà, il est contre les Juifs. Ouais.
Showing us photos of your life married to Andre Lewis. Are you going to tell us that that has similarly also been destroyed? Or are we to make of this that the person that is living in the Élysée Palace, the person who definitively groomed the president, who actually has not been so honest about his background, who is not the genius virtuoso that has been presented to the public, Brigitte Macron, perhaps, is Jean-Michel Trogneux. Jean-Michel Trogneux, who during a transition, the picture that I'm seeing right now, and I'm happy to correct it again because I know you guys are watching at the Élysée Palace, please just answer our 21 questions, because the picture that I'm getting from all of this, and again, we have not even gotten to Xavier Poussard's explosive interview, is that something happened in the 80s. Something happened in the mid-70s and the 80s. Veronique Drew, Jean-Michel Trogneux, your reappearance in 1986 as a teacher.
Bien sûr. C'est ce que je disais au prochain live. C'est ce que je disais au dernier live. Il s'est passé quelque chose dans les années 80. Soit Véronique Dreux est morte avant, soit elle est morte après. On ne sait pas. Avant l'interview de Véronique ou après l'interview de Véronique la trans. On ne sait pas.
The young boys just couldn't wait. Oh my God, look at that. What are you talking about? Who sanctioned these lies in the press? Who are you really? And what is your relationship to Emmanuel Macron? What is Emmanuel Macron's relationship to you? What is the relationship between Emmanuel Macron and Jean-Jacques? It's not feeling like a nephew to me. I don't know. Something feels off there when I look at that picture. Something feels very wrong there. And of course, it's so simple to answer these questions, and yet you refuse to. You go so far as to try to intimidate.
C'est peut-être son cousin, on ne sait pas. Ou son neveu.
It doesn't make you look anything but extremely guilty. That's what I will say about that topic. I'm now going to, before I get into a few of your comments, remind you guys about American financing, because I know the average person finds it difficult to keep up with monthly expenses.
Ah, ça c'est une pub. Voilà, donc la pub. Voilà, donc là c'est la fin.
About the little chubby guy that they're trying to say is Jean-Michel Trogneux, who curiously didn't stand with his family at the inauguration, but stood with the Rothschilds. We'll get into all of that probably in an episode after the interview with Xavier so that you can put that piece together. Suffice it to say, the AI tech says no. That is not Jean-Michel Trog, no. This person, Dehend, writes, Candace, shame on you for sending me down this rabbit hole with you for truth, because now I'm all in. Something is definitely fishy about Mr. First Gentleman, Brigitte Macron. The gig is up. I agree. Christine writes, thank you, Candace, for who you are and all that you do. Chris writes, you may remember me from earlier in the year for finding a beautiful Bible on the ground while walking my dog. I attended my first Catholic Mass this morning and wanted to share. Thanks for helping me find Christ. God bless you. Such an amazing, amazing story. Jessica Wickers writes, I am loving these investigative series. Your thoroughness is amazing with baby number 4 on the way. And given your previous hospital experiences, are you planning a home birth or are you working with a midwife? I would be very happy if I had my baby at home, but my husband won't let me plan that. He's like, everything's been smooth. You have very easy pregnancies and we've had good births. I did have one very bad hospital experience and we ended up checking my baby out of there. But that was really more over vaccines and medicine rather than like my birth actual experience. And so he doesn't want us.
Bon, là, elle parle de sa vie, donc on va s'arrêter là, les gars. Donc, pour conclure, en fait, qu'est-ce qui s'est passé? Donc, là, elle avait continué sur le mariage de Jean-Michel Trogneux et Véronique Dreux, que Xavier Poussard avait contacté Véronique Dreux via WhatsApp, que Véronique Dreux avait qu'elle a dit que c'était du passé au départ. Après, elle a dit qu'elle s'est jamais mariée avec ce Jean-Michel Trogneux et que, enfin, elle s'est mariée entre-temps, qu'elle avait fait 2 enfants, ça n'a pas marché. Donc, elle n'avait jamais dit si c'était ses enfants ou pas, mais que, voilà, au départ, qu'elle avait dit que, voilà, elle connaissait, enfin, il y avait éventuellement une relation avec Véronique Dreux, puis, enfin, Jean-Michel Trogneux, puis après, elle dit qu'elle n'a pas eu de relation avec lui. Donc, je ne sais pas si elle a laissé ses enfants, je ne sais pas si on lui a fait une menace ou quoi. Donc, il y a eu cette interview-là. Ensuite, ils ont divorcé en 87, c'est ce qu'elle a dit. Après, elle a dit Emmanuel Macron, comment il est rentré chez Rothschild. Donc, apparemment, voilà, il est venu, nana, il a fait ses tests, là, il les a pas réussi. Et au moment où il allait passer l'oral, on l'a fait monter en haut. Et donc, du coup, on l'a ken, David de Rothschild l'a ken pour qu'il monte beaucoup plus haut. Ses collègues chez Rothschild, la compagnie de Rothschild, ont été étonnés comment un certain Emmanuel Macron, inconnu de nulle part, monte. Il y a eu ce truc-là. Et il y a eu ce troisième truc où elle disait que bon, Jean-Michel Trogneux avait eu Jean-Jacques Trogneux, qui ressemble à Emmanuel Macron, mais on sait pas, elle n'a pas trop développé dessus, se ressemble, elle n'a pas trop développé dessus. Ça en suivi du mariage de Brigitte Osière. Donc, elle a fait avec les autres personnalités, Princesse Diana, la reine Elisabeth, la probabilité Xavier Poussard a fait la probabilité des femmes jeunes comme Ségolène Royal et des femmes vieilles et la ressemblance. Donc, la personne va plus la reconnaître jeune que vieille. Je pense que c'est ça qu'elle a voulu dire ça. La personne est plus reconnaissante jeune que vieille. Donc, la probabilité, après, ils ont comparé avec Brigitte Trogneux, Brigitte Macron et Brigitte Osière et la photo de Jean-Michel Trogneux. Et vous voyez bien que les photos étaient plus probables de Jean-Michel Trogneux enfant avec Brigitte Macron vieille que Jean-Michel Trogneux et Brigitte Osière vieille. À la fin, elle dit quoi? On ne sait pas quand est-ce qu'a disparu Brigitte Osière, on ne sait pas. Voilà. Après, Véronique Dreux, un peu avant, elle a dit qu'elle a vu, Emmanuel Macron a dit qu'entre-temps, elle ne le connaissait pas, mais elle l'a vu au mariage de sa fille. Donc voilà, c'est tout ça qui a été sorti aujourd'hui. Donc là, aujourd'hui, je vais m'arrêter là. Bon, je vous ai fait un peu le topo. J'ai oublié de vous dire que Véronique Dreux a dit que je vous ai bien dit qu'elle avait divorcé de Jean-Michel Trogneux, mais au final, qu'elle est avec lui, au final, elle ne le connaît pas. Je pense qu'on a dû la menacer. Hein. Ensuite, donc, ouais, elle a bien eu son interview avec Xavier pour ça. Et après, elle a arrêté de parler et tout. Elle a dit, écoutez, j'ai fait ma vie, je me suis remariée, j'ai essayé des enfants, ça n'a pas marché. Donc, de ça, et ensuite. Donc, voilà ce qui est sorti aujourd'hui. Donc, Macron s'est fait ken pour monter en ascension. Hein. Et à la fin, elle a fini par des comparaisons faciales. Probabilité de comparaison faciale, probabilité de ressemblance. Et à la fin, si j'ai rien oublié, donc elle a dit on ne sait pas, voilà, donc on ne sait pas quand est-ce qu'est s'est passé la mort, quand est-ce qu'est partie Brigitte Osière, on ne sait pas. Donc, j'arrête le live. On va arrêter là. On aura un live très prochainement. Merci tous d'avoir participé et à très bientôt. Bisous, ciao, ciao.